Hello, everybody, and welcome to Transform Storage into a Competitive Asset while Lowering Costs. Today's webinar is sponsored by Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I am with Actual Tech Media, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for this exciting event today. But before we get to the content, we do have a few housekeeping items I need to let you know about. And starting off, hey, we want your questions. We encourage those questions in the questions box, strangely enough, in the webinar control panel that's up there on your right. Um, just tell us, in addition to asking questions, you can tell us where you're logging in from today. We love to know where you are and love it when you say hi to us and everyone else joining for the event. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. If that happens, a browser refresh will fix most audio, video, and slide advancement issues. So if something goes sideways, try that browser refresh. And then if that doesn't work, well, give it another one. Oftentimes it takes a couple of refreshes. If that still doesn't work, well, let us know in the Q&A tab and we will hop right on it and try to help you out. Second, look at the handouts section, which is right next to the questions tab. There you will find some important resources, including a link to getting started with Pure Storage. You'll also find a link in that handout section to the ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers that you can apply to join to participate in more in-depth events and other opportunities not available to mere mortals. You'll also find a link there to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events just like this one. Okay, third, at the end of the event today, we are going to be making one of you $250 richer via an Amazon gift card. Now, you do have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for the prize. If you want some boring reading and to find the official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing, well, go to the handout section and you can find that there. Scroll to the bottom and the link with the details will be revealed. And with that, folks, why don't we get to the main event? It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. Dan Kogan, Vice President for Enterprise Business Management with Pure Storage. Henry Baltazar, Research Director, S&P Global Market Intelligence. And Josh Holst, the Director of Private Cloud Services at ARC Data Centers. They are ready to go, and I think Henry is going to be kicking things off today. So, Henry, I am handing this puppy over to you. You have the mic.
Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the introduction. We're really happy to be having this panel today together with ARC Data Centers and Pure Storage. For today's discussion, we're going to be starting off talking about the top storage pain points that I'm seeing in our research and what a lot of the customers are complaining about these days. The other thing we're going to be talking a bit about is the evolution of sustainable storage, especially with ESG becoming much more important for many organizations in terms of their guidelines and operating models going forward. After that, we're going to be talking a bit about how you can potentially reduce your operational burdens by using STAS. And then we're going to be talking about how some organizations are responding to unexpected cloud costs, which is another big rising issue. Finally, we're going to be ending this by talking about some of the advantages you get from having a consistent storage platform. So going into the first section, in terms of storage pain points, when we look at the storage landscape, the top issue continues to be data growth and cost. In our most recent survey, what we found was data growth continues to be quite rapid, with average data growth of about 23% expected over the next 12 months. I think the other issue with this is as data grows, that means all your other issues become more difficult as well. So one of the other things we saw was that managing data across third-party and cloud environments was the second highest ranked pain point for many organizations, which is why this is going to be a great topic for today in terms of the people we have on board, in terms of talking about not only innovations in storage, but also on the storage service provider landscape. Next, we're going to be talking a bit about why storage migrations are becoming such a big pain point. And also another key element that organizations are thinking about is the fact that public cloud storage pricing is rising for most. 65% in our most recent survey found that they either had an increase or were notified of an upcoming one. looking a bit into our most recent research, what we did find was, I think the big takeaway here from this chart is there are a lot of different pain points and issues that organizations are dealing with. As I mentioned earlier, data capacity and growth wind up being a big issue. Also, the management across multiple environments is difficult. The other things, cost, both on a capex level and opex level, also wind up being big issues as well, with 22% of respondents both complaining about those things. Also, many of the other key capabilities and things that we worry about are also still very much pain points in terms of being able to deliver adequate storage performance, and also a lot of some of the other things in terms of data protection and making sure we have resiliency and reliability. Also, making things quite difficult is the fact that we have 20% of respondents that say that they can't get they have a lack of skilled staff and have difficulty acquiring the right skill sets for these type of things. So, all in all, it is a very challenging environment, especially for service providers. And with that, I think I'm going to start off with Josh on this one. When you look at these top storage challenges, what are the main challenges that your customers are talking to you about?
I think a lot of it comes down to their kind of choppiness when it comes to storage growth than being able to predict that in a typical capex model. So they're really looking more for a consumption-based model, which a storage as a service easily presents to them. So you really don't have to do the capex model. You get to move to buy what you need, get the guaranteed performance and the SLAs behind it. What we're seeing as well are organizations are really starting to think differently about how they want to manage infrastructure. So what they're starting to think about is, do I want to take my traditional IT staff and shift them more towards business innovation and things that are going to drive value to the organization? Specifically, how do they take that data? The data is the most important thing to an organization. How do they start to monetize that? And that you need resources. And in an IT world where we're always challenged to do more with less, I think that's a shift that IT leaders are starting to go through of, how do I shift some of this burden off to a service provider? How do I ensure I get the performance and integrity of that data that I need for my applications to ensure my end users and my clients are getting what they expect? And then how do I get a well-rounded security and data protection policy around that?
That's all great stuff. I thought one of the things that was interesting when I was reading over the write up on your deployment, you had issues with backups and whatnot. Can you talk us a little bit about what you guys wound up doing in terms of how to handle some of these backup workloads to make sure the resiliency was running correctly?
You bet. So being a cloud services provider, we deliver a multi-tenant infrastructure, which means we have a lot of different workloads, a lot of different clients with different demands running inside that infrastructure. And with our traditional backup storage platform, we were not getting the performance we were expecting. We were missing SLAs, backups were taking longer than expected, restores were taking an absorbent amount of time, and we had to balance the restore aspect of what clients were looking for with the needs of actually getting the nightly backups done or the hourly or every 4 hour backups done. As a result, we did make a strategic shift over to Pure Storage to be able to help provide that. And what we've been able to see is we're meeting SLA performance. We have zero impact on our production storage and storage production users. So meaning our multi-tenant environments, they're running exactly as they should be, and our clients aren't experiencing any sort of performance issues. As a net result, our clients are also happier with us because now we can restore their backups faster, which means their downtime or their response to their end users or clients is improving as well. So it's been a very positive change.
Actually, one other interesting change I saw there was I think in the past you had multiple suppliers, multiple platforms, which added complexity. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits you saw by consolidating more of those resources onto Pure?
Yeah, you bet. So exactly like you stated. So the more vendors you have in your IT ecosystem, the more touch points you have to have with various management interfaces. Each one does things a little differently. By being able to consolidate into a Pure-based platform, be able to use the Pure One console, which is a cloud management interface, we've been able to simplify our management. Where today, I believe we have in excess of 30 Pure arrays under management, and I have 2 storage administrators that's supporting 30 plus arrays, hundreds of clients, thousands of LUNs out there. So we're getting a lot of efficiency, both from an operational standpoint, and then plus with the Pure One, we get really good capacity management and the ability to forecast what we need to purchase down the road based off our storage trends, based off each environment.
Yeah, great stuff. Dan, on your side, same question. What are some of the top problems that organizations are coming to you, your customers are coming to you for Especially as an all flash storage player, what are some of the problems that you guys can help them take care of?
Yeah, well, I should probably just let Josh keep talking because he's doing a pretty good job of laying some of those out. Because one of the first big ones is that operational complexity piece of it, right? And that's a great testament to it is how many storage arrays, 30 plus arrays, thousands of LUNs that you are handling with two storage administrators. And one thing we see with our customers, so Pure, we have one common operating system in Purity running across block, file, and object storage services. We have Pure One, that management console you talk to. We have a common control plane in Fusion. The platform itself is very, very integrated. So compare that, and all organic. This isn't a bunch of acquisition bolt-on stuff. And under the same top banner brand, you've got really very different storage platforms that are all their own specialized domain. That doesn't exist with Pure. So in terms of managing a holistic environment, across your data centers through colos into public clouds, it's one common operating system, one common environment to manage. So that really, really allows you to let your resources go further. And then even kind of doubling down on that operational complexity piece, feature sets are relatively similar. There's not, I will say, take immutable snapshots as an example. Like I can't think of a major storage vendor that doesn't offer immutable snapshots in their platform, but the workflow of setting that up at the granularity level you need and the recovery, we would encourage anyone to test out how Pure does that versus the way that's done on any other kind of competitive platform. And that's just a good example of seeing the difference that we bring to it. You mentioned kind of the all-flash piece of it. One of the things that probably got customers to move to Pure in the early days and continues to be there, we kind of refer to as often imitated, never replicated, is that evergreen architecture of non-disruptive upgrades, no downtime, both software and hardware upgrades. And you see that here, right, Henry, in your survey with storage migrations. And I actually think that's the downtime related to migrations is part of it. But I think a big element we see with our customers is just downtime in general, failure rates, from disk drives causing unplanned downtime, their general storage arrays, unplanned downtime. By architecting from the ground up around Flash, we eliminated that within our customers' environments. And so that's really been kind of one of the primary, these are the reasons people come to Pure in the early days, but it really continues. I'm a little surprised how hard that's been to replicate for others, but also not understanding, just kind of how this was, again, built from the ground up and the operating system built to manage Flash versus an operating system built for disk that was kind of ported over. So that's another piece of it. Certainly you talk about the data growth and the scale and the ability to scale on your terms and not have to purchase too far ahead. We've seen that really be a big shift to our STAS business and the repatriation of kind of CapEx spend also moving into STAS. Cloud costs are another piece of it. One of the things we do really, really well in our operating system is reduce data. So from data reduction to thin provisioning, we can apply that to storage in Azure and AWS. And what you see is ultimately a lot less provisioned storage when you apply the data reduction on top of, with our software running on top of their native infrastructure. That saves customers significant orders of magnitude kind of cost savings there. So I'd say that's sort of that's the high level. And then the last piece, and again, it's also really driven by the Flash piece and how we optimize Flash. The density we're able to drive out of Flash modules is around space, power, and energy savings. That is continuing as an increasing issue for almost all of the companies we work with, whether or not they have specific sustainability and green initiatives, or it's just a point of capacity and cost. AI driving a lot of that, GPU usage, driving up energy costs. The fact that we are able to operate so much more efficiently from a space, power, and energy standpoint than any other storage platform is another kind of significant driver.
Yeah, those are all great things, and really thankful because it actually leads into our next topic, which is the evolution of sustainable storage and a lot of the new challenges that organizations are dealing with today. Very, very difficult and very important challenges. But one of the things I saw in the research that was interesting was when we look at what was important, A lot of organizations are very much concerned with power consumption reduction. 56% saying is very important. But that's not to say that the other things are not important. Almost all of these have a high level of importance. Very few things have more than like a 10%. A respondent saying it's not important at all. Beyond the power consumption reduction, we're also looking at organizations that want to have more extended life cycles for storage arrays. There's nothing more disruptive than having to yank out and migrate and put in brand new arrays every 3 to 5 years, which was the commonplace for disk-based environments. But now with all flash and now with more modern architectures, you have the ability to sustain those platforms for longer and provide in-place upgrades so that you don't wind up losing out on performance or the capabilities as the hardware gets better and better over the years. I think another thing that many organizations are struggling with is how they deal with sustainable hardware retirement, especially as we start becoming more concerned about e-waste and what happens to these systems as they retire out. And as we can imagine, there's also a fair amount that are concerned about carbon emission reduction and also rack space consumption reduction. I'll turn it back to Dan. Sorry. When we look at all flash storage, obviously a lot of these different areas you guys can deal with. Which ones in particular are really catching your customers in terms of where you can provide benefits with all flash?
Yeah, first one is around just reduction in power, cooling, and space. What our customers see is about 80% less power and cooling costs within a fifth of the footprint, data center footprint of the legacy storage environments that kind of moved over to Pure from. And so what they're really achieving is about one electrical watt per terabyte with Pure Storage. So that's really significant. We've kind of doubled down around that in our STAS platform, and we actually offer energy efficiency SLA. So that's one of the things where we can actually pay your electric bill because of the power bill for the storage part of the data center, because of the savings we see and kind of the confidence around that. Part of how we do that, and we also kind of say not all flash is created equal. We design and develop our own direct flash modules, software, hardware, very, very deeply integrated in there. We also talk about kind of the Apple Tesla model from that standpoint. But those take up a fifth of space and a fifth of power with 7 times fewer drive failures than kind of their equivalents. We've now have 75 terabyte drives, and we've been pretty public about that roadmap, seeing those double over the next couple of years, double and double again. So we see a path out to 300 terabytes before too long. So that really, those factors add up to just massive reduction in space, power, and cooling. And then the last piece of it is e-waste. So by having much more reliable components, replacing failure-prone disks with 10 to 20 times more reliable flash modules, not having those forklift upgrades you talked about, we see our customers experience about 85% less e-waste than with comparable technologies.
Yeah, those are all fantastic things, but I think the thing that strikes me is the fact that, yes, it's about building a better system and having the system more reliable, but it's just a system. You also have to have the services, and I think that's where organizations need to be able to get more value than just getting a better box. They need to be able to offload it. We're at a time where, just ease of use isn't a luxury anymore. It's a requirement. Proactive management, those capabilities, those are requirements. They're not luxuries anymore. So I think and those are issues that we'll be talking about further in later in this discussion. Josh, turning to you, I thought one of the things that was interesting looking at your documentation, how ARC was changing some of their models. You're going to a new model in terms of a pricing model of pricing by kilowatts in terms of some of those capabilities. Can you talk a little bit about why you guys made that decision and what are some of the benefits?
Yeah, from our data center standpoint, we really took a look at our market space and really started to determine that, buying a cabinet with a certain amount of power allocated to it, it just wasn't fitting the demands of our clients, what they're looking for. So what we did is we took a step back, looked at our facilities, we looked at our ability to deliver power. And now what we're really focused on is we sell power by the per kW, and then we allocate a certain amount of square footage, which then equates to the cabinet. What this actually provides is a better consumption model to our clients for those who need to fill up a cabinet with Pure Storage, but they're not going to need the power that would come with the traditional, cabinet plus a certain amount of kVA or kW per. What we can now do is right size our clients' consumption of power to what their infrastructure actually requires, both in a startup phase and natural running phase. And we're getting a lot of attraction through that. So it's been very beneficial for us to make that change. And again, in partnership with Pure, to Dan's point early on, and Volta is seeing about an 85 to 86% power reduction. We're seeing 96% better density in the racks themselves. So we're able to fit a lot more storage, consuming a lot less power, which is a benefit to the organization, as well as we have a publicly facing ESG report. We are committed to being carbon zero by the end of 2030. And our investments into partners like Pure are going to help us get there.
Yeah, that's all amazing stuff. Hopefully that type of innovation will drive forward, and we'll see other organizations or other service providers try to take similar models, especially when we see that power consumption reduction is such a big deal. If we have highlights onto that, we can definitely make some more progressive changes in those regards. Getting to the next topic, we're going to be talking a bit about how you can reduce some of those operational burns by using STAS. And in that, one of the interviews we had recently with a government organization was this, in terms of their ability to use STAS to help reduce some of their staffing requirements. In this particular case, I'm not going to read the entire quote to you, but I think the real punchline comes at the end. Being able to get these resources without having to have the extra storage manager person to manage a specific storage piece, especially if you wind up having a heterogeneous environment with multiple players and multiple technologies. Those wind up being extremely problematic. But when we dive into the research, I think one of the things that's interesting is there's so many different areas in STAS where you can get benefits and where people are willing to pay for benefits. Obviously top of mind, they want to have 24/7 break-fix support. More and more people also want to have security hardening capabilities, especially with the threat of ransomware and other things coming to mind. Organizations need help with those things. How do we make our environments more secure? In terms of installation deployment of STAS, that's also going to be a big issue as well. People don't want to spend all these days and hours racking and stacking. I did that in my old days, but it's not it's not the glamorous life there. There are other ways to spend your time that are probably more beneficial. Other elements here is, clearly there's the need for storage capacity and performance management. There's also at the end of the life cycle that need to decommission STAS hardware on premises. And then also we do have people thinking they need help with the configuration and day-to-day provisioning of the STAS resources. Finally, as you can see, what many organizations are looking for is also the ability for STAS to be able to help with the array patching and updates. So turning to Josh, when we look at this laundry list of items, which of these things in particular, which operational challenges were you looking for Pure to help alleviate for you when you went to STAS?
It's actually all of them, so even as a service provider, ARC is challenged with the same type of problems that exist for enterprises and mid-enterprise and SMBs that are in the game of kind of managing storage. So we need to do more with less. So how do we manage more physical devices, more virtual LUNs with less people? I need to ensure that I have 24/7 uptime, and go into the kind of the evergreen approach to Pure in the non-disruptive upgrades. ARC has never had a service impacting outage with any of our Pure devices. Unfortunately, I can't say that about the other platforms that we've used in the past, but I can say with Pure, no service impacting outages, and the non-disruptive upgrades have all gone very well. What that allows us to do is take our initial CapEx investment and draw that out to a longer depreciation cycle, which allows us to really maximize the investment in that physical infrastructure. Our ability to kind of manage capacity in kind of a per block mode helps us very well, as instead of having to go buy these large chunks of storage, we can really focus in on, based off what our forecast tells us and then what my sales pipeline tells me, we can go buy kind of the right amount of storage to continue to manage things. The deprovisioning, short of pulling back data, we don't deprovision Pure. We just continue to upgrade the platform because of its design. It allows us to continue to do that. So again, we're drawing out the capacity in the CapEx investment lifecycle. I am able to manage more with less, and I do expect us to add more arrays with still managing with 2 people. And again, the features, the capabilities, we're start to innovate and drive more of those into our STAS offerings so clients can get the full benefit of the platform, but still rely on our data centers to do the full management, capacity management, lifecycle, security updates, all the traditional things that come along with managing physical infrastructure. So really, if you look at in Volta now, our data centers challenge, it's really around everything that's on this list.
Yeah, that's all fantastic stuff. I think one of the things that's not on this list that you highlighted that is really interesting is having that elasticity capability, ability to add that capacity and not have to overbuy up front. I think that's one of those big changes from going to traditional environments to more of these STAS, OpEx, and flexible environments. Dan, from your side, can you tell us a little bit about what Pure does to help organizations that are more traditional transition to Pure as a service?
Yeah. Well, I love that Josh spent so much time talking about Evergreen and that Evergreen architecture, because whether that's been with Pure from day one and is really kind of foundational principle. So before we offered a STAS platform, we really kind of had a lot of the STAS benefits built in at the core, from those non-disruptive software and hardware upgrades and zero downtime. And there's a lot of things that first push people out of their data centers into public clouds and not having to deal with that. And so if you've been on Pure or Pure, or you've kind of gotten around that Evergreen, that already sort of starts you down that path and journey. Other things, we've been very deliberate with our SaaS platform to be a true as a service platform, not just a different kind of financial model and more of a leasing sort of wrapped up program, but with the same kind of legacy architecture running underneath it. And so everything with us is very SLA based. So it's a little bit of an option menu for customers of you get a lot of the same benefits from the Evergreen platform, but you can be responsible for building out these SLAs yourself and offering that to your end users and IT department. You can go to companies like Arc that offer that as a service based on our platform, or you come to us through the STAS platform and you don't have to worry about performance, capacity, availability, efficiency, ransomware protection, data loss, those kind of things. We have SLAs for all of those. So those are so rather than which array model, the various performance feeds and speeds of the array that you have to look at purchasing, it really shifts the conversation on those variables of performance, capacity, availability, efficiency, data protection, and that becomes the driver for the conversation and for ultimately what you purchase and what you think about. And so that's really the transition we sort of help customers with as they evaluate if STAS is the right model for them. But certainly the ones that have done that have really enjoyed the outcomes of it.
And Dan, I kind of want to expand upon that. The simplification of the Pure product set, you essentially have 3 product lines, right? So C, X, and Flash. In Volta now, our data centers really operates with a C and an X mindset. So what that does is it simplifies our buying structure. So we get very consistent buying mechanisms associated with it. But again, I get the same benefit of that same Purity OS. I get the Pure One management console. It's not these multiple systems with different management interfaces. So again, you're driving more efficiency back into your IT operations by partnering with a Pure who has a simplified operating model.
Actually, getting back to that, I think going back to that flexibility point, I think that is a big area because in the past, before you had things like that, were there cases where you made a mistake and said, oh, let's buy a bunch of this, and it winds up being maybe it's a high-end system that you don't really need the performance on, or worse, you buy a low-performance system and realize, wait, the applications are dying from that. How much more aid do you get in terms of not having to guess as much by going to this type of consumption model?
Yeah, so from a production storage standpoint, in Volt, I keep on doing this. So in Volt has recently rebranded our data centers. Our data centers primarily operates in the X series platform. And what this allows us to do is we really don't have to have a lot of speeds and feeds discussions with their clients. We have our sales engineers go in, they do a very thorough assessment. And typically what we see is everything's going to fit within the X series platform for us. And what we do is we operate in an 80-20 model. So we try to design everything we do with an 80-20 split where 80% fits in this common core infrastructure. And then we have a 20% capability where we could be flexible. If we really require something different or some tweaks to how we deliver it, we have that flexibility as well. And then with the C series, That's kind of our ability to really drive out cost from a platform, but yet provide a certain set level of expectation for performance and SLA while meeting a certain cost per terabyte structure as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Anything you want to add to on, Dan?
No, I mean, you were, it was great again to hear kind of the simplicity across the product stack line, and that's even expanded in the E series and the XL up above that, and it's grown, but it is all off of one common operating system. It really is, and it's just the flash media and basically some specifics around controller design that differentiates on the hardware and performance side, but to operate it's the same. But when we have those task conversations with customers, we don't even go there. We just go, okay, we have multiple performance tiers for block, file, and object. Which one fits your workloads, or which ones? And it's very easy to swap capacity, essentially, or swap between those tiers, which is another one of the STAS benefits. Of you're purchasing a commitment ultimately, but within that, if you want to swap between block performance and universal data repository, which are about ultra block performance, universal data repository, about the two ends of the spectrum, and there's others in between, you have the flexibility to do that. So you're not locked into, that particular array that you purchased.
Yeah, it's all great stuff. And with that, we're going to talk into the next section. Next section here we're going to talk about is how you're helping organizations respond to unexpected cloud costs. In particular, one of the things we've seen in the research that people have been complaining about is the really expensive egress charges to be able to take your data out of a public cloud environment, either bringing it back on premises or even putting it to another cloud. In our most recent study, what we found was 48% of the respondents were negatively impacted by egress charges. And as you can see on the right, a lot of bad things happen when you have to do that. We had 62% that just accepted, yep, our cloud costs are increased and we're going to deal with that. We had another 40% who said, you know what, we're going to move to a service provider with lower egress charges or doesn't have egress charges. We also saw, 36% repatriating data all the way back to on-premises as a result of getting burned by egress charges and increased cost for cloud, going for public cloud services. In some cases, we did see, I really hate to see this, but 30% said that this prevented their implementation of multi-cloud, and an additional 28% said that they slowed down their adoption of cloud storage because of what they were seeing on the negative side in terms of egress charges and the extra fees. Let's start with Josh here. When you look at how you can help organizations, can you tell us a little bit of how these expensive egress charges have driven customers to get more out of their more of their value out of putting their data in your data centers?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations look at the cost you see in a public cloud provider is that's my cost, and to your point, what's behind there is ingress and egress charges. Now, public cloud providers are starting to make some changes because of the amount of pain organizations are going through. Mm-hmm. But from an ARC data center standpoint, we've always been a bandwidth-based organization. We aren't going to charge you per little bytes and transactions that are going to happen with your data. I think what this really comes down to, though, is as organizations really look to mature their data strategy, they really have to understand where is that center of gravity, where is the most important critical data, and what systems does it need to talk to. A lot of times what we're seeing are organizations are kind of moving all in, putting all their chips into a public cloud provider, but yet they still have these core platforms on an on-premise or a data center services co-location functionality. And they've got to push and pull that data back and forth. So what you really need to focus on is where is that data gravity located at? And then how do you architect your systems to take advantage of where it's going to be the least impactful and the least amount of cost associated with storing that data? But yet also, how do you keep it close enough to the platform in order to monetize or get the best value out of what you're looking to accomplish with it?
Yeah, I think that's an important point because when you look at cloud and public cloud, why people want to use it, some cases it's for innovation, like they want to be able to take advantage of a new feature in so-and-so cloud. And I think the benefit here is the fact that since you're a connected data center, the cloud providers don't charge ingress fees. They're fine you sending your data there. It's when you take it out, it's when they charge you. So there is that a benefit of being able to centralize on one of your type data centers and be able to deliver that data on demand to go get processed somewhere else, and then only have to send the results back, which is much of a smaller payload and can definitely lead to lower costs in terms of avoiding some of those egress charges. I guess turning to Dan on your side, can you talk a little bit how Pure's platform and technology can help customers be able to reduce some of their cloud storage costs?
Yeah, I mean, this has probably been one of my favorite areas of kind of seeing this play out, and hopefully the egress charges. Hopefully, we'll start to see that change, right? I think Josh hit on that. Google might have been the first one to kind of announce they're doing away with egress charges, and Amazon filed suit, and obviously there's a lot of caveats to that, but it's nice to see that starting because I don't think it's a very customer friendly practice. But so one of the one of the things our customers found, I think a lot of companies found, is as they moved a lot of their applications to the cloud, started closing up data centers, is that it's not actually all that cost effective to be in the cloud for large volumes of data. Um, and the more you put in there, you're paying a pretty significant price for that. And so one area is just helping clients be a lot more thoughtful about what applications are going to run in the cloud, what are going to run on premises. And we can, again, through a common operating system, and what runs in the OS running on our Cloud Block Store product is the exact same one that runs on our FlashArray product on premises, and all the replication technologies work seamlessly. So the ability to move your applications between public cloud and on-premises data centers, colo facilities like Arc, is very, very easy. And so we can start to map out with customers what applications they think run where. And then you add Portworx to the mix on the container side, and that just extends that. In the cloud itself, what we're also finding is we're just able to allow customers to optimize cost significantly. I was actually talking to a customer earlier today, one of our early customers with AWS, about how much they've saved, and he looks at the bill of what it would cost to do the same things with comparable EBS services. Mm-hmm. And he's able to get the performance of the highest level of EBS at roughly the lowest EBS cost price. And most of the data, when you use our Cloud Block Store, is actually stored on S3. So that brings that down. So our own caching and our software layer that enhances the performance allows him to do that. So there's huge cost savings there. The snapshotting capabilities built in, the immutable snapshot capability that allows them to save on a third-party piece of data protection software potentially. All those things really start to add up. But again, the biggest one being cloud storage. If you look at an EBS or an Azure disk or Google Persistent disk, they're all thick provisioned. You don't see data reduction. And so you're paying for, every single gigabyte, every single terabyte. And our customers in the cloud, on average, see a pretty significant data reduction. I don't want to say, but it's higher than the 4-to-1, 5-to-1 we typically see on prem. Take that over 100 tips of data, and the cost savings start to become real very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, especially with Cloud Block Store having the same replication capabilities and being able to take advantage of your
and that works across clouds too, right? Mm-hmm. So again, egress fees stand in the way of that, but replicate across AWS and Azure environments is also very possible.
Yeah, for sure. Being able to replicate across those environments and then using that deduplication compression capability to reduce the payload. So, the best thing is to reduce how much time it takes to move this data and also reduce the cost of moving that data. And both of those things are possible because you have those capabilities. So great stuff there. Let's go to the next section here. Next section we're going to be talking about is the advantages of having a consistent performance storage, having a consistent storage platform. In particular, one of the things we saw in our research was we did see a third of respondents claiming that they were negatively impacted by slow storage performance, slow storage performance derailing their applications and other issues like that. And that's continue to be a big issue for many, especially in this age of customer service and customer experience. You can't afford to have a slow, laggy service and be able to stay in business these days. So starting off with Josh, I know Arc recently announced that they were going to be moving towards more mission critical workloads and adding more support for business continuity, those type of capabilities. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing or what Arc is doing to improve the platform going forward?
Yeah, from Arc standpoint, we are really looking at, how do we support the larger enterprises with mission critical workloads? And a lot of that just starts with the foundation. You need a consistent performance storage platform that's going to meet the expectations of the application that it's kind of feeding. Arc also has the unique advantage of being able to see how storage impacts things on both sides. We have organizations who are on older legacy infrastructure. They've designed their applications to run on that in a performant way. When they actually move to Arc, we actually have had to help them re-architect that application to take advantage of the new speed that's there. Because what they've done is they've architected that application to kind of run in a certain sequence of events. Well, now you just unlocked a vast amount of speed with super low latency associated with storage, and they actually caused incidents within their application that took it down. So being able to work with us, we've been able to help them re-architect that application to take better advantage of the storage. Also, what we have is a unique advantage of seeing organizations that come in with this set expectation of, well, I'm just going to run this on the lower storage. I don't need high performance. And they're immediately impacted, or they feel like they're having a CPU problem or a networking problem. When we are pulled in to help investigate with them, what we can see is immediate congestion in the storage. So having the visibility is really beneficial to us. And then we're able to kind of guide that organization like, hey, we just need to move you to the next tier of storage performance. And it immediately solves their problem. And they don't have to spend a lot of time re-architecting, changing configurations on the virtual machines, things along those lines.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let's pull Dan into this discussion in terms of the consistency elements. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other capabilities, whether it be management capabilities or AI ops type things? Can you talk a little bit about how Pure can help organizations with their consistency?
Yeah, well, again, that's the beauty of that common operating system across all of our platforms, block, file, and object. That's the beauty of the AIOps platform in Pure One, supporting all of that, and the Fusion control plane. So there really is a very simple, consistent stack that you work with Pure. And we started with that X family of high performance block storage, and that's now scaled out to multiple protocols, obviously, and multiple form factors, from a higher performance tier in XL, and most recently the E series, which is competing more with disk-based pricing, where we can be at kind of the 20 cents a gig level there for an all-flash array. So that's handling kind of data repository and archival workloads. But that's all with, again, the same operating system, the same feature set, the same AI ops management platform. And so that level of integration across the various platforms has a pretty massive payout in terms of operational costs and overhead.
How about from your side, Josh? I mean, have you seen or had a lot of examples where the tools themselves were able to proactively warn you about things and help you avoid outages?
We have, again, that's, to us, it's kind of that power of that Pure One management platform. We know the infrastructure could run. We've had large, consistent IOP workloads running on these platforms with no impact. It actually exceeded our expectations of what the platform can do. But because of the platform itself, we were able to see what was happening. We were able to ensure that we don't have kind of the noisy neighbor effect that happens, especially as a service provider who runs kind of in a multi-tenant footprint. That's super critical. And then again, as we have to go through and update the fleet of 30 plus arrays, again, having a consistent management plane really simplifies that, where we are starting to automate more and trust the tool to actually take care of it. And then we have the tool tell us when something doesn't go right. And we know it's not going to go down, but we're able to back it out, reassess, and then move forward with it. So it's been very beneficial as we continue to operate kind of in a do more with less mindset.
Oh, great. Anything else you want to add, Dan, in terms of some of these capabilities we might have talked about?
No, I mean, again, I think Josh hit so many of my points. I probably should have been quiet and let him do the talking. It's usually better when our customers do that. But it's good to see a lot of what you've showed in your research, and really aligns with what it is we're hearing in practice and kind of conversations we're having with customers.
Yeah, everybody needs help, and what better place to get help from than a service provider? I mean, we need offload. We all need assistance. We forget things. But I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, I think when getting back to the core of the problem, the data storage problem is only going to get worse. We're only going to have more and more data. I don't see organizations getting rid of data. Data is really important. You can't do anything without data. So unless we do a better, more sustainable job of managing the storage, we're just not going to get that much further going forward. And with that, if you'd like to find out more, please take a look at this QR code. This QR code will lead to some more content on unlocking storage savings for on-premises and in the cloud. And with that, thanks so much. I appreciate the panelists for joining us today. And thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, gentlemen, for a great discussion. Really loved hearing what Pure is doing and how storage is changing right now, and it sure is. So I wanted to mention that although they can't take questions today, the Pure Storage team will be following up on all questions that were asked. And that's about everything today, folks, except to give away the $250 Amazon card. As I mentioned up at the top, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible to win. And we do have a winner for this webinar today, and that winner is Jace Kendall from Utah. Congratulations to you, Jace. We will be in touch ASAP to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Pure Storage for making this event possible. I want to thank all of you attendees for being with us, for your great questions, for your interest in this topic, and for spending part of your day with us. That concludes today's event. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, folks.